first section of the A2.2 form that we're filling out has to do with the 17B helmet. So we're going to skip down to section 2, which is the neck ring assembly for the Kirby Morgan 37, which is the helmet that we're working on today. Any items related to the neck down, we're going to skip that and mark those as non-applicable because we have our own maintenance procedures and cycle for service and inspection of that item. So drop down to step 2, which is to inspect the chin strap inside the helmet and the attachment components for signs of wear or damage. I have a towel to protect the helmet on the table. I recommend you do the same. We're looking at the material to make sure the material is free of any defects, any cuts, any tears. Material looks good. The plastic buckle, we want to make sure that works well. It doesn't catch and it's free of any kind of breaks or damage. If there is damage found, this is a part that we can replace. We want to check the snaps to make sure the snaps are good and not popping out or that they don't have any damage. So the chin strap looks good. We're going to go to the next step, which is to inspect the locking collar for signs of damage. This is your locking collar. We want to make sure that it slides back and forth freely to be able to adjust it. Each diver should adjust it according to their neck size. Use a number 2 Phillips. Anything other than a number 2 will damage the screws. So we're going to take those off completely, and then we're going to look at the screws and the nuts to make sure the threads are free of any damage or distortion. So there is a little bit of corrosion. These items, we want to use a soft brass brush to be able to clean the corrosion off of the screws. If you have a brass pipe cleaner, you can do the same thing for the nuts to clean that. So as we clean, we want to use mild detergent and warm water, or if we have access to an ultrasonic cleaner, we can throw these metal parts into the ultrasonic cleaner. So we're going to take the neck pad off and we're going to look for any damage or distortion in the material. It is dirty. We can clean this neck pad. I recommend using a nylon brush to clean and scrub. That way we don't damage or cut into the rubber. So we'll want to clean and wash this with mild detergent and water. We don't want to lose our screws, so I recommend to just put the screws back onto the neck pad. And then we'll set that aside and move on to the next step. So part of the inspection is to look at the collar itself to make sure the metal is free of any defects, to make sure it's not bent, to make sure it opens and closes and sits flush. So that's good. The next step is to look at the helmet ring inside the base of the helmet. So this is a helmet ring. We want to make sure that it's free of any nicks or any distortion or any damage. If we do see any corrosion, we can clean that with a brass brush again as well. Mild soapy water with a brass brush, and then I'll get some of the corrosion off. After that, we want to check the helmet front standoffs. Very easy. These are the front standoffs. If your helmet does not have a front standoff, mark that as not applicable. So we're just looking for any kind of distortion or bends in or out, and to make sure that the screws that attach the standoffs are in place. So the standoffs look good. I'm going to mark those as being inspected, checked. And then we want to check the swing tongue catch. So that is this item here at the very bottom. And we want to flex that a few times to make sure that it works. So we'll flex it down, then release it to make sure it snaps back into place. So that snaps back into place really well. We'll check the spring for any damage, and we'll check the screws for any damage on both sides of it. So that is going to take care of the neck ring assembly portion of the inspection. The next step is the helmet shell. We're going to inspect the exterior. So we want to visually inspect the helmet shell exterior for loose or missing fasteners, and obvious signs of fiberglass defects or damage, including gouges, scratches, or any other imperfections. So that's another reason why we don't put tape or any kind of covering over the helmet, so we can see all the fiberglass. Any gouges deeper than 1/8 of or 1/16 of an inch that show bare fiberglass should be repaired. Fiberglass and gel coat repairs must be completed by a technician that has received certification for helmet shell repairs by a KMDSI or dive lab. So we want to remove the Snoopy, the helmet liner. So we'll take the helmet liner out. So we want to check the cushion helmet liner for tears, broken snaps, or any kind of damage. So I have taken a look at the helmet liner. The helmet liner is good. The snaps are all in place. We'll also take a look at the snaps on the helmet. So all that came off and on very well. I checked that already. So the snaps are all good. They do recommend that you lightly lubricate the male snaps with silicone 111. So it's not a lot, just a fingerful, and just put it on the male end, like so. It's a little bit of silicone on the male end to make the Snoopy go in a little bit easier. It also protects it from corrosion as well. So that I do recommend to do at the very end after everything's been cleaned and put back together. So that'll probably be the last thing that you do with the maintenance inspection. So next we'll want to remove the earphones and microphones from their holders. We'll want to remove the covers. So this is the earphone and the earphone cover. So we're going to remove the covers and we're going to do an inspection. That's the baffle, front cover, and the back cover. This is the critical part here. We want to make sure that it's free of corrosion, loose wires, or any kind of damage. So we'll clean that and replace as necessary. If they're wet, leave it uncovered so that way it can dry out. If you are going to wash the inside of the hat, which I typically do, I recommend to remove the module. So we'll remove the module, just hand tight, and then we'll wash and clean the inside and outside of the helmet. So the next step after that is we want to perform a communications check as soon as we put the covers back on. When we perform the communications check, we'll put the comms back inside the helmet, the earphones and the microphone back in their holders, and then we will connect the communications to a comm box. A single diver comm box is fine. You can either use an umbilical or you can make up a length of comm wire to be able to easily test your comms. If you don't have a length of comm wire, please reach out to be able to make one. So we're going to connect that, and we're going to set the comm box away from the helmet. You can have a person help you with the comm check, or if you're by yourself, I would get a phone and put on something with speaking. You don't want to use music. It's too much distortion with the music, so I put on my Bottom Dwellers podcast, and I'll put that in the diving helmet. So I'll put it in the helmet, and then I'll put a cloth or some kind of covering over to eliminate the feedback. So I am getting sound out of the comm box, so our microphone is working. So now I'm going to check the tender to the diver communication. So I'm going to put the same podcast on the comm box. I'm going to use a heavy weight to weigh down the button, or you can find another way to have the button pressed if you're by yourself. So then now we're going to check the earphones.
The big thing is that you don't know until you actually do it.
So we are getting sound out of the earphones. I like to pull them out just to get closer to my ears to double check that the sound is coming out of the earphones. So now that the communications check is done, I'm going to do what I said and remove the comm module out of the helmet, so that way I can better clean the helmet. We don't want to use a screwdriver or anything that could potentially damage the helmet, so I'm using the end of this wooden mallet. You can see it's been used before, so we're going to put that wood end on one of the teeth and we're going to give it a little tap. And that little tap is going to free it up. That's if it's tightened down a lot. So we'll free it up, remove that nut, and then it'll slide right out. So just remember to re-silicone the O-ring on the comm module. So don't lose this O-ring. That you'll want to put a little layer of silicone on it when you reinstall the helmet. So when you reinstall the comm module to the helmet, you'll do everything in reverse. Put the nut in, module will go in with the wire going towards the umbilical in the same direction as the umbilical, and then you'll tighten it by hand. So there's no need to tighten it with a tool. It's going to be all done by hand. So we'll remove that, and then we'll remove the nose clearing device. So the nose clearing device, or the nose block, we'll remove that from the helmet. So I'm going to grip on the inside and remove the knurled knob. There we go. And then I'll pull out the nose clearing device. That slides right out. Then we'll remove the nut. Now this nut does have washers on the inside. Don't lose those washers. Those also have to be re-siliconed before you put it in. And then you're also going to re-silicone the shaft of the nose clearing device. So we'll take off the pad as well. We'll check it for any damage or distortion. We're going to wash the pad, let the pad dry, and we'll clean the other components as well. So once we take that out, then we'll be able to remove the oral nasal mask. We'll do the same thing, make sure it's not stiff or broken, make sure there's no damage or defects. And then we'll also take off the valve. So we want to inspect the plastic components of the valve and also the rubber. We want to make sure that it lays back flat. So that's for all these valves, we want to make sure they lay back flat, that they're not curled up or dried out. Do not put silicone on this. Mild soapy water to clean all these items. So you're going to clean these. I like to sanitize everything in the oral nasal mask and let that wash and then let it dry. So then after that's removed, want to set that aside. Don't lose any parts. Feel free to put your metal components into the ultrasonic cleaner. Without air to the helmet, we're going to check the operation of the steady flow valve and the emergency supply valve. So we're just going to turn and close. Turn and close. The valves should operate smoothly. If they do not operate smoothly, they should be disassembled, cleaned, and lubricated. EGS valve turns good. So right now I'm going to take some time to gather my parts to make sure I don't lose anything. So the next step is to remove the main exhaust valve cover. So that's the main exhaust valve cover. We're going to look at the valve to make sure that the seating surface is not damaged and is free of contamination. We also want to make sure that the valve material is not hardened, distorted, or warped. I recommend using a 1/4 inch nut driver to remove the 2 screws that are on each end of the main dewatering valve cover. Careful with these screws. They do have O-rings on them, so those are going to be re-siliconed and then we'll cut the zip tie. Be very careful. I use diagonal cutters, and I'll cut the actual body of the zip tie. So I'll cut that there. Make sure we didn't cut the rubber beneath it, and that comes right out. So then we'll remove the whiskers, and just push it up a little bit, and then this cover should come right out. That comes out. Be careful also with the cover, it does have an O-ring on the inside. So you'll take a look at the O-ring to make sure it's free of any cuts, nicks, or damage. And if you wanted to take it out and put a little bit of silicone, that's not that big of a deal, you can do that. But it looks good, I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to set that aside. If it did have distortion, you did want to clean it, you can throw that in the ultrasonic cleaner as well. Make sure you do not throw the O-rings in the ultrasonic cleaner. So right here we're looking at the valve. So we want to make sure that the valve is laying flat. And we also want to make sure that it returns flat after lifting it up. So I got a plastic pick, so we'll lift one end of it and let it go, and it lays flat. And do that all around. We also want to lift it up and take a look at the little spokes to make sure those are free of damage or distortion. And if you do see that this is curled up or dried out, that valve can be replaced as well. You'll have to reorder a dewatering valve. When we put this back, we'll reassemble it, and then we'll slide this end in first, like so. And then we'll put the top piece of the valve in first, and then work it back over the body. So when you have it back on, I've reinstalled the screws. We have the rubber back on. You have to reinstall the zip tie. This part can be a little tricky. I recommend going from the bottom up, so it's going to be a little sideways, and then you're going to saw it in place. So you'll saw it back in place, and you want to get the zip tie in these grooves. So it's really hard to get it to sit in the grooves, so you may need to help push it with a plastic pick. And then I also like to use a flashlight to be able to see on the inside to make sure that we're in the grooves. So if it's not in the grooves, it's not going to get a good seal. So what I will do is, once I get it somewhat in place, I'm going to zip the zip tie a little bit. Not all the way, just a little bit. And then just do little by little. So I know it's in the groove here. So that's about the max amount that I'm going to zip it for now. And then now I'm going to work it into the grooves. So I'm going to feel with my fingers. I'm going to push it, push the back end here into the groove. And then I'm going to check. And then I can kind of saw a little bit to get it to sit in the groove. And then I'll tighten up the snap. Then once it's in place, then we'll go ahead and snip that. We'll use our diagonal cutters, cut it very close, and that'll be good. Then we have our valve back on. So once we get the zip tie tightened, we'll want to try to flex it a little bit to see if it moves excessively. If it does move and pop off of the valve cover, then we'll want to redo it. So that'll just repeat the process, cutting the zip tie with our dikes and our diagonal cutters, and then reinstalling the zip tie. So now we're going to take off the knobs. So we are going to remove the steady flow knob, and then we'll inspect the exterior surfaces of the shaft and packing nut for signs of corrosion and damage. So we got the nut off. We'll see the spring. These can also be scrubbed with a brass wire brush. and then throwing in the ultrasonic cleaner. I'm taking the knob off, looking at the knob for any damage or distortion. There is a washer, so we can look at this plastic washer. It's called the wiper, so we'll take a look at that. And then we'll look at, so we're looking at the exterior surfaces. The packing nut looks good, the outside metal. There is a little bit of corrosion. I'm not too concerned with that. I can clean that corrosion away pretty easily with this nylon bristle brush. Nice and clean, so it's just on the surface. We want to check the threads to make sure there's no pitting of the threads. And then we also want to check to make sure that the knob turns straight. And you can tell whether it's straight by putting the knob back on and turning it. So you shouldn't see a wobble. You shouldn't see any wobble in that in those threads. Another thing I like to do with the threads is I like to get a magnifying glass and be able to examine the threads there. I like this lighted magnifying glass, and I'm able to look around all edges and be able to see if there's any distortion or any damage to the threads. We're also going to do the same thing with the EGS valve. We're going to remove the knob. Look at the surfaces. Look at the spring. Those look good. Look at the knob itself. And then we're also going to look at the packing nut, the exterior of the packing nut. So again, it's not rounded. It looks in good condition. And then I'm going to put the knob back on and do the same thing. Look as I turn, just to make sure it's not wobbling. So if we do see any slight wobble, that's a good indication that this helmet may have been dropped on its side, on the side block, or that the thread is bent, the valve is bent. So if we do see a wobble or we do see signs of it being bent, we're going to want to take it out of service and then get a replacement valve. So all these repairs, they should be done by trained Kirby Morgan technicians, which we do have some in the company. And then I'll look at the threads again to make sure there's no pitting in the threads or any damaged threads. And that looks good. So we're going to put the knobs back, and then we'll reinstall the springs. Then I have the cover on there. I like to push down and then turn with my thumb if I can. Thumb and forefinger to get it to catch a thread. Once it does catch, screwdriver to push down and turn. Push down and turn to get it to engage. So it's engaged. And I will tighten it down to where it's flush with the knob. There's no need to tighten as tight as you can. Just go flush with the knob. And then after you're flush, retest the function. So if you do tighten down the nut too much, the knob won't turn as easily. So it's turning good, so we're going to leave that alone. It's been inspected and it's passed inspection. The next step is to check the umbilical supply one-way valve. That's the one-way valve. We're going to suck on the umbilical adapter with the emergency valve or steady flow valve open. So I'm going to open up the steady flow valve, and I shouldn't be able to suck any gas through the one-way valve. So I'm going to go ahead and suck on it. The tongue is stuck on the valve. So there was a good seal. My tongue wasn't moving, and the one-way valve is operating. Now, if you have a vacuum test, you can put this on the helmet. So we're going to attach that. This vacuum tester. And then we do want to tighten it down. So we want to tighten it down because it's going to leak if we don't. So that's tightened down. And then we're going to give it some pumps. and it shouldn't move. So if it does drop slowly, then we have a bad one-way valve. But it's not moving. We can let that sit for as long as we want to, but I'm happy with it. It's not moving. So I'm going to release the pressure and remove the vacuum tester. So now we'll want to remove the regulator cover and diaphragm. We want to inspect the interior of the regulator body for corrosion, for contamination, and we want to clean it. So we take this ring off, just like that. Careful not to lose the screw. You'll inspect the ring and also the screw, same thing for corrosion and for any kind of damage. I like to put the screw back in, and I'll screw a couple threads into the ring, just so I don't lose the part. So there we go. Put that aside. Take the cover off. So the cover shouldn't have any dents greater than 1/8 of an inch. So we'll want to take a look at the cover. If we do have dents that are greater than 1/8 of an inch, we'll want to replace the cover. So that still looks pretty good. If there's any corrosion, you can go ahead and try to clean that with your brush, your nylon brush or wire brush, with a mild detergent. Do not put that in the ultrasonic cleaner, just metal components, full metal components. We also want to take a look at the diaphragm. So we're looking for any distortion, any damage to the rubber. We're looking for any kind of cuts, tears, or deterioration. So this is also a part that if we do see cuts or tears, we'll want to replace it. So this can also be washed with mild soapy water. Do not silicone this. In fact, this may have a little bit of silicone on it, so I'm going to make sure that this is washed really well with a mild detergent. So we'll look at the body. We'll also look at the exhaust. We'll take a look at the spokes of the exhaust to make sure they're free of damage and they're not warped, and also the rubber to make sure that the rubber is in good condition, the valve. So now we want to attach a gas supply to the umbilical adapter. So you can see we have a section of umbilical that we have attached to the fitting there at the helmet. And the other end has a scuba fitting and a scuba regulator, and we connect that. These scuba regulators are set between 135 and 150, so that's going to be good. So we're going to turn that on. So now we have air going to the helmet. So we are going to back out the dial of breath until we have a slight flow of gas. We're still backing out. Then we're going to turn it back in till the gas stops. And we should only be able to depress no more than 1/4 of an inch. So between a 1/16 and 1/4. It's about a 1/16 before we start getting gas. So that definitely is between a 1/16 and 1/4 of play in the lever. So if we do have more play than 1/4 of an inch, then we are going to want to adjust that. Again, don't adjust the regulator unless you're a trained Kirby Morgan technician. So then now we're going to put the diaphragm back on. And the cover back on. And then we shouldn't be able to depress them more than 1/4 of an inch. 1/4 of an inch should result in a strong flow of gas. If the travel is less or greater than it, then we have to readjust. So that's about 1/4 of an inch. Another trick you can do is use a penny. Put a penny in there, and the penny should produce gas once you press down on the penny. If you have your toolkit, Kirby Morgan hat toolkit, take out the wrench. The wrench has a flat plate on it, and that's 1/4 of an inch. So that you can depress on the regulator, and there we go. Now we have gas. So that's good. Now we're going to put the ring back on. The screw is going to be, the head's going to be up like so, when we put that back on. We're gonna check the steady flow valve. So the steady flow valve should rotate half a turn open should result in strong flow. It's pretty good flow. And then 1 3/4 should be full open. It's 1, that's full open. So the steady flow is working. We're closing that back up. And there we go, I'm gonna secure the air. And then now we're going to attach a regulated gas supply to the emergency block, the EGS. All right, so we now have a gas supply hooked up to the EGS. So we have the EGS hooked up. We've got the air, just turned on the air. Now is a good time also to snoop all your fittings to make sure we don't have any leaks. You can also snoop the umbilical adapter as well. So we're going to repeat the same steps with our checks. I'm going to open the supply. I'm going to close it and dial that in. Dial it in some more. Then we check our regulator. 1/4 of an inch, it's good. And then check our free flow valve. Half a turn and a full turn. So all that is good. And then I'm going to go ahead and clean the hat up, give it a good wash down. All the brass, if we have brass weights or brass parts, we can also scrub those with a green pad to clean them up. If you want to clean and buff and shine your helmet, that's good too. But I'm just going to wash with mild soapy water and then put everything back together that I've taken off.